Hello everybody, I am Lightning Stripe, and today it's time to talk about the best pony herself, Misty Brightdawn. So by now, you probably already know that despite Zip's theories and Hitch's love for animals, Misty is by far my favorite pony. And so, of course, I had to make my obligatory video about her. So here it is, everything we know about Misty's story, what her cutie mark truly means, as well as a theory I've picked up along the way. So, let's get started, shall we? Firstly, for those of you who sadly have been living under a rock and don't know the joy and amazingness that is Misty, let's start with a quick recap of what we know about her story up to the end of chapter 4. We know from several mentions that she was found by Opaline as a lost young filly and she was taken in. She grew up with the Alicorn, being abused and pushed around to the point where she very likely now suffers from social anxiety. All the while, Opaline hung the promise of a cutie mark above her head like a carrot on a stick. However, despite being raised by manipulative Opaline, she never really held the same hatred for ponies as the Alicorn did. After all, how could she despise something she never really experienced, or even ever saw? But she did know one thing, she wanted a cutie mark. She needed a cutie mark. And if helping Opaline meant she could get one, then she would do anything she could to succeed. Though with her being raised in a castle alone with an evil Alicorn that pushed her repeatedly, she wasn't very good with other ponies, and that became very apparent when she was sent out to scout the ponies when magic returned to Equestria. With her socially awkward but extremely adorable self, Misty quickly befriends the main five, earning their trust and getting them to show her around the Bright House. First, Misty found Sunny's lantern, which Opaline told her to steal. Cue week-long quest of Misty trying and failing to steal the lantern. Then they find out about Sparky the baby dragon, and being a fire alicorn, Opaline asks her to steal him instead. Cue month-long quest of Misty trying and yet again failing to snatch the dragon. After getting very close but failing again, Opaline begins to get angry and starts punishing Misty again. All the while, the adorable unicorn begins to actually like being with the main five, and begins to doubt whether what she is doing is right. Eventually, Opaline grounds Misty for a day, while she herself goes out to get a dragon artifact, and Misty takes this chance to visit her pony friends. When she comes back, the experience only increases her doubts about the alicorn. However, she does eventually manage to take the dragon all the way back to the castle, but right when she decides to take him back, Opaline comes in and congratulates her. Knowing this is wrong, Misty travels all the way back to Maritime Bay and gathers the main five to take Sparky back. Skipping forward a bit because explaining it simply doesn't do it justice, they manage to take Sparky back while Misty gets her cutie mark by helping them and stays with Opaline to act as a spy once again, but this time for the main five. And this is where she stands at the end of chapter 4. Now, like I said in my last video, I did plan to explain what her cutie mark would be, but since I couldn't finish making the video by the time she actually got it, I will instead be explaining what her talent actually is. So when I first started my quest for cutie mark discovery, I looked for scenes where Misty seemed to do things for herself, and not just following Opaline's orders. And when she does get her cutie mark at the end of chapter 4, she says that by freeing the main five, she was finally able to be herself. So what does being herself truly mean when it comes to Misty? Well, Opaline is very controlling, and she doesn't really care for Misty that much as long as she follows her rules. This means that while we don't see Misty show her true self around Opaline, there is one safe place she has to be herself, her room. Your room is yours to design, and Misty designs hers in a very interesting way. The first time we saw her room, my theory senses immediately began tingling. Opaline rarely gives Misty something, so when she does get something, she makes it last. Case 1, her bed. Well, it's more like a beanbag, but still, it's clearly been stitched and restitched several times, and I doubt Opaline would care enough to do that. There only lives one pony to have done it, Misty herself. And this isn't the only time we see her do this. When she goes to the sleepover at the Bright House, she takes two things with her, a pillow and a sleeping bag, and both of these are in the same state as a bed, stitched and restitched with mismatching pieces of fabric. And it's the same thing with her saddlebag. But stitching isn't the only thing Misty's good at, no, that would be too simple. Looking again at her room, we can see a drawing of Opaline, and we actually get a close-up of the drawing later on. She also draws Sparky as well, and can I just say, she's drawing a freaking dragon from miles away. I can barely draw myself without a reference. And we also should point out Madame Taffytail, the, as Misty called it, unicorn made of junk that she makes so she finally has someone to talk to about how she feels about Opaline. Her cutie mark herself is something that she made up, and she also draws that exact same butterfly at the back of her phone. All this ties into her creativity and ability to see the good things in life, to look through the mist and into the open sky behind it. And that is her talent. That's what being Misty truly means. Oh, but isn't that too similar to Izzy, you might ask? And to that I say, yeah, but why is that a problem? Several ponies in old Equestria had similar cutie marks, and that's never been an issue. Just look at Applejack and Big Mac. Both have apples as their cutie marks, and both work the same job bucking apple trees and running sweet apple acres. The big difference between Izzy and Misty is that Izzy grew up with nearly everything. Sure, she loves unicycling and making things out of used material, but she always had an abundance of things to work with. Misty, on the other hand, didn't have that pleasure. She grew up with nothing and learned to make do with what she had. Both these characters connect back to Pinkie Pie in a way. Izzy shares her enthusiasm because she's always grown up with toys and things to make other things from. Misty grew up with nothing, just like Pinkie grew up without joy in her rock farm. The difference here is that Pinkie found joy at a very young age, while Misty was left with Opaline, who controlled what she could and couldn't do. Speaking of Misty's roots, a lot of theories have been sprouting up lately. Since mine was sadly proven before I could show it off, let's take a look at another big theory that seems to be gaining a lot of evidence lately. We know very little about Misty's past, especially before she was taken in by Opaline. You could say she's very mysterious. Ow. Anyways, jokes aside, one thing is certain. She had to have come from somewhere. Opaline had to have taken her from somewhere, or more importantly, someone. So who is that someone, you might ask? Well, many creatures out there seem to think that it's none other than Alphabeto Blossomforth. And yes, that is his full name. And for the sake of not using my breath in any more long sentences, I'm gonna pull a card from Queen Haven's book and just call him Alfie. Anyways, why him, you might be asking? They don't look anything alike. Well, that is true. They don't share similar coats or even eye colors. So why does everyone seem to think he is the father? Well, they do share one very peculiar trait. Freckles. What's so special about freckles? Well, allow me to give you a quick crash course in pony biology. You see, when a child is born, they take traits from both parents. To make a trait, you need two genes to come together, one from the father and one from the mother. Some of these genes, like hair color and pattern, sometimes mix together, but others, like eye color, are either dominant or recessive. If two dominant genes, or one dominant and one recessive, pair together, the dominant one shows, hence the name. The only way for a recessive gene to show is if two recessive genes pair up. Taking this back to Missy and Alphabeto, freckles happen to be dominant, meaning if Alphabeto's freckled genes mixes with another pony, say Queen Haven's non-freckled gene, the child will have freckles. And lo and behold, Misty also has freckles. But if freckles is a dominant gene, doesn't that mean the father could also be someone else with freckles? Well, yes, but I think you'll find yourself spending quite a lot of time trying to find another freckled unicorn out there. Suddenly, the coat colors don't seem too far off, do they? Want more proof? Well, Alfie only sees Misty once, during the masquerade ball, and his reaction is very peculiar. So allow me to work my magic just like I did with Misty back when she was barely a silhouette standing next to Opaline. So let's take a look. There isn't as much to work with than with Misty, but Alfie is much easier to read. The first thing we notice is when him and Haven are talking about the ball itself. The moment she says it reminds her of her daughters, Alfie's expression drops. It's huge for character development, but something not a lot of ponies notice. Right after that, he spots her in the crowd. He's looking at her like he recognizes her, though he doesn't remember from where. It must have been so long ago that he doesn't exactly recognize what she looks like, especially with that mask. He shakes his head, like he's trying not to raise his hopes. He spent so long without her that he doesn't want to let his hopes get ahead of him, only to be proven wrong once again. The only quote-unquote problem with this is that it's gonna make things pretty awkward between Alfie and Haven if it's true. Though he didn't seem to be with any pony else before the Pegasus Queen, so the mother is probably dead. What is up with all these single parents lately? What is this, Disney? But hey, look on the bright side, they'll probably be the first mixed tribe family in generations. What would their ship name be though? Heaven Biddle? So what do you think? Do you agree with me on her true talent? Is Alphabeto really Misty's father? Would you buy Misty's masquerade mask if you could? I sure would. But leave your thoughts down below in the comments. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and as always, remember, friendship is magic.